Hello and welcome to Very Interesting. I'm your host, Phillip Britt. This is a unique episode of our show. We are coming to you from one of the most fun locations for children and families in Southeast Missouri, the Bootheel Youth Museum right here in Malden. We have two very special guests alongside today. Welcome Museum Director Patsy Reublin and BYM Board Member Mitch Green. Welcome, guys. So glad to have you on Very Interesting.
Phillip, good to see you.
All right, so I've often wondered, and I was fairly young when this happened, but I've often wondered who in the world looked at an old Pepsi Cola bottling company plant and said, let's make a children's museum out of that. I mean, the plant was closing and they said, what can we do with that building? So tell us how that all happened.
The way that it works is that we had four local ladies who were playing bridge one day. As it turns out, all four of them had recently been traveling to visit their grandkids. One had been to LA, one had been to Texas, a third had been to Washington, D.C. to accept an award, and the fourth, I'm not exactly sure where she went. But they were playing bridge, and they started to talk about what they did while they were traveling. And one of them went to the LA Children's Museum, and another went to a science center, and the lady, Virginia Heisey, who was on her way to Washington, D.C., actually sat next to a guy that started a children's museum in his garage.
Wow.
And they were talking about all of that, and one of them was like, well, we could do something like that. I've got a garage. And so this thing that was an idea of we'll just do something small in our garage, they then shared with their husbands and other people in the community, and it became this idea of the Bootheel Youth Museum. And as it turns out, luckily, Malden had an empty Pepsi plant. And so we were able to partner with Southeast Missouri State University. We only pay $10 a year rent, which we couldn't do what we do without their support. And they allow us to use this great building.
Absolutely. You know, who were those other ladies sitting around the bridge table?
So there is Virginia Heisey, right. Pat Moorhead, Carol Demery, and Mary Howe.
All women I knew very well. Yeah, they were
movers and shakers in town.
They definitely were. There's no doubt about it. So we've come a long way since that. So tell us, when was that? When was that idea born?
So the incorporation papers were signed in 1994. They had their first meeting in 1989 just to talk about different things. They hired their first executive director, Ray Vandiver, in 95. Is that correct, Mitch?
Maybe even earlier. Maybe even earlier.
What they did is they raised enough money to bring in their first executive director. Ray Vandiver came in. He was at the time in graduate school in St. Louis, and had always wanted to work in a science museum, had grown up with the St. Louis Science Center, and we were lucky enough to get Ray and Donna, his wife, to come down. Donna was the first education coordinator here, and they built what is an incredible organization from the ground up, along with all of these great volunteers that came together to help support the museum and continue to do so.
Yeah, it's a lot of volunteer help, isn't it?
Oh, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. Somebody asked me one day, what would happen if, a tornado came in and took out the building, and to replace this facility would be millions of dollars. There's just no way. And, that's just the building itself. Think about all the thousands of hours of, volunteer time. Mitch Green, one of the reasons that we wanted him to be here is that he served a 9-year term on the board. This is after he served a year and a half or 2 years and then ended up having to come off the board. And now he's back on another 9-year term. So, we have tremendous support from folks like Mitch. And I know you've been around and been to many of our different events and whatnot.
Right. So tell us a little bit about the exhibits themselves. How do you come up with ideas for the exhibits? I mean, they're all hands-on. Kids don't come here and just have to stand back. Nothing's behind glass. They don't have to come here and stand back and like a lot of art museums or other kinds of museums. this is a hands-on museum. So tell us, how do you come up with the ideas, and then how do you create these amazing exhibits?
So not everything in the museum has been made here in town, but a lot of it. I would say probably 75%.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe something close to that. And you know, we work with the committee. We have a building and exhibits committee and education. And you know, when they first founded the museum, one of the first things that they did is they went to every children's museum and science center that they could find, and they went, I think we can replicate that. You know, we might be able to do that. And that's basically how we started. And you know, so when I got here in 1999, we were just in this one exhibit hall. None of the buildings were in here, with the exception of the facade for the grocery store, and it was done up. And then everything has grown from there. And it's just somebody saying, well, let's do an obstacle course, and then us finding, you know, out a little bit of how to do that. And like Greg Hampton is the one that I found somebody to come in and build the children's playhouse here. We found somebody, he had plans online, and Greg called him and said, hey, if we pay for a ticket, will you come down and help us build it? And so he got on board and came down and built it in a few days. So, you know, it's been, you know, just a lot of volunteer help. Ernest Miles,
Ernest is great.
Mitch can tell you a little bit about Ernest. He was the first big volunteer here.
Ernest was so adamant about doing things right that one of the first things he wanted was a good level. So Ray found him, I don't know if it's an oak or a walnut, and it had to be a wooden level. And it's a 4-foot level. We still have it, and it's used all the time. It's got paint and dings all over it. But that's how so adamant Ernest was to get things done, like the walls and all. Everything's, if you looked, everything's going to be perfectly square and plumb. Ernest was just great. And like Patsy said about the Greg Hampton and his idea for the house. One of our big backers over the years has been Steve Wallace and Harps. Steve said, well, I wonder if there's a way we could do a grocery store. So that's how the grocery store idea started. Ray Vandiver one time had mentioned something about whisper dishes at one of our meetings. Well, Falcon Communications at the time was still here in town and just happened to have 2 big stainless steel satellite dishes. So Ray one night sat in our meeting room and he drew on a whiteboard for me how this whisper dish idea would work. It made no sense to me whatsoever. Right. And he and I came in one night and set these whisper dishes up, and I'll be danged if it didn't work. You can whisper across the building. Right. The fire engine is great. The kids love the fire engine. It's Malden's first fire truck. It's a 1927 REO Speedwagon. Yeah. And the city lets us set it in here, and it's a hit. It's great.
It's amazing. So that's probably for many kids, that's their favorite thing. Of course, it's the first thing they see,
yeah.
But it's one of their favorite things. I know my grandson was here not long ago, and that was one of his favorite things, was just to climb on the fire engine or the tractor. He loved the tractor as well. So
after it was out for about an hour, we wrapped the bell in plastic and electrical tape because it was really loud and it was very popular. But it's things like that. Somebody would just have an idea, and like Patsy said, we get in the exhibit in the building committee and say, somebody asked about this, or can we do this? And then between all of the people in town and networking, our meetings, somebody will have an idea and they'll say, well, I know a guy who can do this, or I know a guy who has an electrical background, and it just goes from there.
So Mitch, what prompted you to get involved in the first place?
I was told to.
Who told you?
Yeah. So I came home from the Army in '92, and my mother was on the board. And
I had a feeling that's where it came from.
She said, I need you to do something at the Youth Museum. And that was, it was either end of '92 or early '93, so I've been here like so many other people since. Carol Demery, one of the ladies who had the ideas. Carol was still on our board, and she comes to almost every meeting. We see her all the time. It's great.
As you've grown, I mean, you said when you started it, when you got here, and I remember that very well, those years, you were in this exhibit hall. So tell me about the expansion, about how over the years tell me kind of how that expansion happened.
So I had been I'd planned on going to the Association of Children's Museums conference, and it happened to be in Baltimore at the time. And I was like, well, that's not very far away from DC, so let's go up and let's meet everybody. So we did a little bit of research. We put together some demographics of the people that come here, and so that we could show them. And then we sat down and we talked to everybody. Now, we didn't get to meet anybody but Joanne Emerson at the time, but they were interested and asked us a lot of great questions. They sent us home with some homework to do, and we of course came home and did the homework, and happened to get a phone call from Kit Bond's office about a month later, and he said, "No, I don't want you to tell anybody, but I have some money for you. I need to know how much you need, and I need you to put together a proposal, and only you can know." And I'm like, "Can I at least tell my board chair?" And he said, "Well, okay, but only that person." So we put together a proposal for some exhibits that we had wanted to do, that we had been talking about doing anyway. And we put a little bit of chrome on there, and gave them some names, and fussed them up a little bit. And then it came down to, okay, so how much do we ask for? And I went, well, let's see, $500,000, right? Okay. And so we sent in our proposal, and they're like, $500,000, that's doable. And I still kick myself for
You
not
said I
asking
wouldn't
for
have asked for $2 million.
They ended up coming through for us, one of the original pork barrel projects, and I wish they did more of those nowadays. Maybe people would get along a little bit better in DC if they still did that. And so we started to expand and move to the other side. And we were lucky enough to still be in communication with Ray Vandiver. He called us one day, and we were explaining what was going on and whatnot. And one of the exhibits that we wanted to do was about outer space. And he said, "Hey, we've got a space station sitting on our warehouse." At the time, he worked for OMSI in Oregon. And he said, "How about if we sell that to you?" And I said, "Sure, how much do you want?" And it was some $50,000 amount or something like that, and then we hemmed and hawed, and then we said, well, maybe, and he said, "How about if you pay for the shipping and we'll send it to you?" And that's how we got the space station, which is 24 feet long, full of exhibits and that kind of thing. So just another case of small town, the small town world, and living in Malden is that everybody knows somebody, and people are willing to help out, and from there it just kind of grew. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the science part of it really changed the nature of the museum. So I know you wanted to go that way. Tell me what kind of prompted you to say, you know what, we've got a lot of cool hands-on stuff, but let's do some maybe even more educational stuff.
Well, they started the Children's Museum in Cape, and we were like, is this area really big enough to compete with two children's museums? We don't want to replicate what we have. And the model for children's museums is always about sort of going out and taking the ideas that other people have and trying to utilize those. And so how can we change that? And originally when Ray came in, he wanted to start a science center. And so a lot of the original exhibits, the shadow room and the bubble room, all of those things have educational components and science components. And so it was a natural fix to kind of go back to that original idea, and to try and push that. We were also really excited that we got invited to be a part of an organization called NISENet. It's changed over the years. It initially started as a Nano technology program, but now it stands for National Institute of Technologies and Science Centers, and they partner with different organizations to do different educational kits that you can present. They provide all the training that you need. all the educational resources that you would need. So you get this kit in the mail. It comes with everything you need. You just open it up. It's got signage in it, all of that stuff. And then they train you how to use it, which is great for us because I can have a new person come in that's just a volunteer, and I can say, here, watch this video. It's going to tell you everything that you need to know, and then they can go out and do that activity. They've also brought in 2 different exhibits that we have here. The Nano technology exhibit, which when we first got involved in this project, somebody tried to explain what Nano was to me, and it was, I'm an art major, so it was quite the adventure for them. But now I have a pretty decent understanding about it. So we have the Nano exhibit, and then we also have the space exhibit that just opened a couple of years ago. So.
Could I brag on Patsy and
Absolutely.
her staff and the community for this NISNet group, the space exhibit that she mentioned they just brought down. And they build this thing. They come down with all of these notes, like she said, training videos and all. And they're in Minnesota?
They're spread out. So NISNet is a national organization, but they have hubs, and our hub is in Minneapolis.
Okay. So this group came down. I took the day off work and came down to meet them. And for this last exhibit, we were the first one to get this exhibit. So I was talking to their staff about it, and they said, well, this was just a perfect fit. She said, after the last time, she said, we knew that the first one had to come here. And she said, just the way that everybody, she said, the staff here and the community and the way that the people were interacting and talk to us, she said, we get more feedback here and we enjoy coming down here. And that crew, it sounded like there was a little bit of a discussion in Minneapolis who was going to get to come. It sounds like there was a little bit of battle. They wanted to come because a couple of them had been here before. And they really bragged on Patsy and the staff and our facility and the community. They just really enjoyed it, and they get so much that they can take back with them to work on other exhibits and how to make changes. And we were sort of, guinea pigs, not really the right word, but they asked us for feedback and all on how the exhibits work with the kids and the parents.
Well, that's great. So speaking of that, let's talk about who comes to visit.
That's a great question. So when I first got here, I was convinced that this was just, Malden's little thing. And I happened to go to buy shoes one day, and they asked me for my phone number. And I was like, well, that's a little invasive, isn't it? And they're like, well, we just want to know where you're from. And I'm like, well, then ask me my zip code. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So we started asking people their zip code when they came in. And as it turns out, about 37% of our guests come from Malden. The rest of them come from everywhere else in the Bootheel. We've had visits from people from 11 different countries, almost every state. I still think we're waiting on Maine, but I'm not positive. But everybody else has been here. We have about 24,000 guests a year, which is pretty great considering Malden is only 3,600, So imagine that, we're bringing in that many people, and they're not all Malden, so, which is pretty fantastic. When the eclipse happened in 24, we had a group from Canada come down, which was really fun. Luckily, they had found us online somewhere, and they had been staying in Louisville, Kentucky, and they were waiting to see where the weather was going to be good, and they happened to view us, and they came down and they just had big fun. And that's the thing. Everybody was very nice and accommodating, and everybody talked to him. Mitch is my hero because he talks to everybody, and I've learned how to communicate because I'm very shy. I don't like to talk. You wouldn't know that from this interview.
You're doing pretty good.
But that's the thing about coming to Malden is that people are interested in what you do. It's not just about, this is my neighbor, I care about them. There's really that welcoming community here. So.
Well, one of our biggest and most, I guess you'd say, regulars is from Paragould, school from Paragould. They come every year, or once or twice a year, school buses, parents, and it's just a big day for them, and they come all the time. It's been great.
Arkansas is probably one of our biggest field trip groups. They come from as far down as Jonesboro, And it's really great when Arkansas comes. They must have some sort of rule that if you travel out of state, you have to bring 2 parents with you. So we usually have more parents than we have kids, and the building is full of families. And then you'll see, in the paperwork that those folks are coming back, and it's spreading the word. And that's the thing around here. Our advertising budget is $3,000 a year. So most of our advertising is word of mouth. Sure. So which is great, and there's a lot of mouths out there. So.
That's the way it needs to be. I mean, the school groups come and they go back and they're like, we're going to go back next year. The kids talk about it. Are there any schools? How do you reach out to schools that don't come?
So one of the things that we do every year is that we send out a field trip brochure to everybody that we can possibly find. And every year we update that list because we always know that there's some folks that we missed. We used to only send information to a few Arkansas schools, but we've expanded that. We had our first field trip from Tennessee this last year, which was really great, from Dyersburg, and we're hoping to expand that market. But it's really great because you'll have the same teachers that will come every year. We do try to do some different activities for different ages. So we have a science show that we'll do. We also have the lab that will be open for activities and that kind of thing. With our field trips, we do see a lot of kids between pre-K and 2nd grade. So we're trying right now to find some other activities where we can try and get a lot more 4th, 5th, and 6th graders to come in.
Okay, that's great. So tell me, I guess the next thought that I have is about how do you fund everything? I know you got a grant at one point, or you got money at one point, but how do you fund building, operations, staff, everything that we do here?
So we have 3 funding sources. The first is through our regular revenue. So admission, birthday parties, rentals, gift shop, those kind of things. That brings in about $120,000 a year, which used to be a whole lot smaller. We also receive 1/8 of a cent sales tax here in town that happened because a few people in Malden decided to go to the citizens of Malden and partner with the city. So we receive a half of the 1/4 cent sales tax that the recreation department here in town gives us. So that's about $75,000. And then we have grants every year, and that sometimes they're small. Last year I think we had $20,000 in grants. Sometimes they're a lot bigger than that. We've had NAP projects here as well, which are tax credit programs, which have been the biggest movers in the building as far as change and bringing in income. And then the big thing is our annual fundraiser, Mardi Gras, which is a completely volunteer-led activity, and last year brought in $125,000.
So how did that come about? Because that's a fun event, and it's been going for a while. So how did that originally come about?
Mitch Green was traveling and saw Sally Taylor in concert and said, hey, I met the daughter of so-and-so, and I think it'd be fun to have them come do a concert here. And so we did an event, a fundraising event here. We probably made about $1,000 after breaking even with guests. And one of the folks that came was Liz Province. And she was talking to Pat Moorhead, and she said, oh, this is a nice event, but you guys could do better. And Pat Moorhead challenged her and said, well, get on the board and let's do it. And so that Sally Taylor concert became Mardi Gras. And the next year we had the first one, and it was across the street over here at the community center. And We made $15,000, and we thought we were rolling in the dough. It was fantastic, and we had all kinds of people here, and you know, we made it a little bit different than the technical fundraisers at the time. When I first came here, every fundraising event had a politician speaking, and chicken dinner, and whatever. And so we decided that we were going to have an adult prom, which is basically what it is. So we have, you know, we have great food that comes up from Louisiana. Liz, the first couple of years, it was her brother. And
some friends of his.
That came up and cooked, and then it got too big for them. And so we hired it out. So they come up and they cook for us, and we get a band that comes in, and usually that changes over the years. And then we hope that people, you know, will want to buy a table. At first, it was very hard to get people to want to sponsor the event. Well, I shouldn't say that. It wasn't hard to find sponsors. It was hard to get a lot of sponsors and for them to actually come to the event. Because everybody had wanted to sponsor us, but nobody was really interested in coming to another fundraiser. And then, you know, we added the auction to the fundraiser, and that became a little fun thing, and the bands got better, and people started to talk about what was happening and how much fun it was. And so now, you know, it's not hard to sell a sponsorship anymore. You know, people are looking forward to the event, and we've had, you know, you've made it when the high school calls you and says, hey, when is Mardi Gras, because we're doing the basketball schedule. So.
Yeah, you don't want to interfere with that, because it's.
We have, what's our largest crowd now we've had?
Well, we sold over 650 tickets for this last one. We're not sure how many people came, but it sure did feel like that many people were here.
Our restriction now is the size of our room.
Sure.
Like she said, everybody looks forward to it. We print our tickets in November or December, and people start calling us before we get our tickets made, wanted to buy tickets for the next year. Right. And what's great, again, when Patsy mentioned our founding mothers earlier, Mrs. Moorhead and Doc Moorhead moved to Memphis a few years ago. Unfortunately, we've lost Doc, but her kids live in Memphis and Knoxville, and I think Elizabeth lives around the LA area, and they come back now. So they're making a cross-country trip. That's to come awesome. Back to help support.
Well, it's a legacy.
Yep.
You know, it absolutely is.
We have board members and people making donations to us who came here as kids, and then they've grown up, and now, again, we have a couple of board members that came here as kids, donors, people bringing their grandkids because they came here when they were a kid. Things like that is great, but our funding is, you know how expensive things get now. Funding is always our biggest issue, and we can't charge what we need to at the door. It would just be unable for so many of our guests, but the fundraising is so tough, and everybody gets hit all the time. Sure. And we make a real effort when Mardi Gras comes. The people who back us so strongly and have for so many years at Mardi Gras, we don't approach them for any funding for the rest of the year.
Sure.
Because small towns like Malden, Clarkton, Gideon, the same people get hit all the time, same businesses.
Absolutely.
Yes. So we are so appreciative of the people who help us every year with Mardi Gras and any other event, like our monthly events we do in the theater now. It is so helpful, very helpful.
So tell us, that's one of the things that I was interested in. Tell us about those special events. I know you've got one coming up. Tell us about those and how those work.
So we started a new thing that we're calling Bootheel 250 to celebrate the Bootheel and our history here in you know, as a part of America's 250th anniversary. We've had different programs so far. Everything that we are doing has some sort of connection with the Bootheel or Southeast Missouri or Missouri in general. So one of the first events that we did, A.J. Hendershot from the Missouri Conservation Department came, and he told the story of the swamp and how it was in the beginning, the Great Swamp. and then about the draining and all of the lumber that's been removed, and now our work to try and bring some of it back to what it was before. We have another friend who's an alumna, Rodney Paul, who came and did, he's a wild bird raptor rehabber, and so he brought some of his wild critters here, and they flew around the building, and he told everybody all kinds of stuff about raptors and birds, and that was really fun. On Thursday, the 17th of this month, AJ's returning, and he's going to be doing another program about how Native people changed the state of Missouri and helped Missouri become what it is. So we're excited about that. AJ is a great presenter. He's got a nice sense of humor. He's easy to listen to, and he does an event where it doesn't feel like you're being lectured to. It's more like, hey, here's a little bit of information, let's have a little bit of fun with it. We also have a food truck that's going to be here that night, so the theater will be set up for casual dining, so you can sit around. You don't have to, we're not going to make you sit theater style or anything like that. So you can buy some dinner and bring it in, and while AJ's talking, you can enjoy a little bit of food and maybe beforehand a little bit of fellowship.
That's good. That's good. And folks can find out about that on your website?
The info is on our website. Follow us on Facebook. We put all of our events on there. If you need more information, feel free to call the museum. We can also send you a postcard if you'd like one.
AJ's event, and so many of these events that we do monthly now are all free as well.
Okay. I assume donations are welcome.
Of course.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have a sponsor for them, so that's,
okay, good.
That's what makes this happen.
Good. So tell us a little bit about how a person that's watching this can get involved. Can either to volunteer or donate or or a membership or just come to visit. Tell us how someone can get involved.
The volunteer thing is fun. You can help build a room. You can help build a playhouse. You can help us build a farmhouse. The theater is kind of our pride for all of our programs, and it was done, I would say, 90% by volunteers. We had an architect who helped us come up with the layout and plan for the sound, but we would come in here at night. Well, going back to Ray Vandiver, and again, when this was a Pepsi plant and the BEC was next door, we came in with a Bobcat. We'd have to wait until BEC shut down their night classes. Then we would work till 2 o'clock in the morning with a Bobcat and a jackhammer breaking up concrete floors. And then we built the theater. We've got, WW Wood Product built the doors for the front of our theater. Then the volunteers built the stage. So anything like that. If you have an educational background, helping Patsy come up with ideas and planning out educational programs. Mardi Gras, oh my goodness, we have a volunteer group of like 6, and if you've been to Mardi Gras, what those 6 people and the staff can do is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, because that's quite an event to put
just
on.
Word of mouth. If you've been somewhere and you've seen something, and one of the board members, or stop in and talk to Patsy and the staff, say, I was here and saw this. Just ideas. Staffing again is great. We've got a great staff right now. We've got some young kids just out of high school. We've got Bubby McMahon, who I grew up with Bubby's son. Bubby's on the staff. We've got a great staff, but volunteering is great. If you want to help build something, help for an event, just come up with an idea.
So also, my other question is, I guess, kind of to wrap up, somebody that's watching, what can they do to volunteer, is there a membership, or, how do they know about the events and all that kind of stuff? So kind of tell me what someone can do to help.
Well, the volunteer jobs are pretty much endless. Landscaping, my goodness. If you like landscaping and working in your garden, we've got a nice little garden out front. Our board members are all volunteers. We just have a meeting once a month, and you can be on a committee and not even be on the board. So if you have an interest in education or helping with exhibits or helping with the building, finances, if you have a financial background and you want to serve on our finance committee, that would be great. Building hands-on stuff in the building is always great. You can volunteer to work on days when the museum is open, work with the kids, work with our field trips, work with the staff. If you have an education background, talk to Patsy about maybe some ideas on how to set up some of the educational programs. And we do have memberships. We have lots of members, individual members and family memberships as well. Grandparents membership as well. Grandparents are our best guests. Grandparents come in and they play with the kids. We have a crawl space up here that we've had a grandfather get stuck in one time when we used to do the Halloween.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't Billy. When we used to do the Halloween, the haunted houses, we built a small crawl through space one time, and again a grandparent got in and got stuck. We had to shut down and get a grandparent out. Grandparents are great.
Well, I guarantee you, I would crawl through places for my grandson, and I wouldn't have crawled through for my kids.
Absolutely.
I can promise you that. So, absolutely.
Yeah, volunteering would be great. If you know one of the board members, if you just want to come in and walk in the front door or call and ask about how you can help for an event or for a period of time, recently retired, if you've got some time you want to help out, if you like to paint, you see all the colors we have in here. Yep. So yeah, any volunteer idea that you might have would be welcome.
And just call us. If you have a special skill, we'll probably need it at some point. There's probably a ton of people out there that love Christmas, and the holidays are a big deal around here, and we would love to have anybody that can help make Santas and decorate and that.
Have you been to our Breakfast with Santa?
I was just going to ask about that. I know that's an opportunity as well. Breakfast with Santa. Tell us how that came about.
We borrowed Breakfast with Santa. Well, actually, we didn't borrow it. The chambermaids had been doing Breakfast with Santa for years and years and years, and they eventually needed a new place to do it, and so we welcomed them here. At some point,
they said, "Why don't you do it?"
They were like, "We can't do this anymore. We're it's just too much work," and so we took it over, and we've been lucky enough to take on what was a great idea. One of the great things about Pancakes with Santa is that the kids get to meet Santa, but they can also go shopping for their parents. So we have a free kids-only gift shop. They get 2 tickets. They can go in and they can get a present for mom. They can get a present for dad. And then we have elves that help wrap gifts and get those ready for them. Lions Club comes in and they make hundreds and hundreds of pancakes.
Lions Club's great with pancakes.
They
know how to do that.
They know how to flip one. So they're great. Last year we had over 1,300 people here. The event is only 2 hours long. So it's a lot of people in 2 hours.
The kids all get pictures with Santa.
And Mitch is our resident photographer.
Yeah, the default.
So, and he is very good at making sure that nobody's eyes are closed. So
that's a challenge.
Yes. So we do have a few screaming and crying babies on occasion, but those are the best pictures, I think. So
some of the
especially when they get to be 15 or 16, then you get to look back at the picture and show that to them, right?
But some of the families show up in matching pajamas for the day as well. Because again, it's at breakfast, so they come in, they eat breakfast together, the kids go shopping, and then we have a family photo, or just the kids, or sometimes both, when they're all in their matching Christmas outfit. It's really great. It's big fun.
And we have a lot of people that this has become their Christmas, their annual event. I know that it may not have been the first year that Mitch was the photographer for this event. He ran into somebody, and he was like, I can't believe you're here. I thought you had to work today. And he's like, no, I come every year. This is my 4th year. So, which is great. We now have Holly Davis. Her granddaughter is now not just coming, but volunteering for the event and that kind of thing. So,
in the zip code collection again.
And we take zip codes that day, and it's amazing how far away people were coming for that event. We had people from Jackson and all over Arkansas for that event. So that's one of our volunteer jobs, is we invite some ladies to come in, and they sit around the building, and every time you walk by them, they're like, "What's your zip code?"
That's great.
So
That's great.
So
and when those people come to town, lots of them are staying here for lunch.
Yep.
They'll go shopping here in town. They're buying gas here in town. And they all leave here with a gift and pretty happy.
Definitely, I mean, 100% that there's an impact, there's an economic impact to folks that come here for the
And I should
museum.
give a shout out for Toys for Tots. They make sure that every child that goes home gets something. And the first year that they were here, we have a lot of people that come to this event that this is going to be the only Christmas that they get. And we had a lot of kids that were getting the stuffed critter and they thought it was just a prop.
For the
They had to give it
photograph.
back. Oh gosh.
You know, so you know, it's just kind of heart-wrenching, but
Sure.
at the same time, you know, you watch that event and you can't help but go, we did something right.
The two people we have that are Mr. and Mrs. Claus helpers, the kids will bring in letters to Santa and or a drawing that they did and give it to Santa Claus while they're here. It's
Absolutely.
really great. It's fun to
Absolutely.
watch.
Well, I mean, not just that day, but every day you are an asset to this community. You're a gem for the region for sure. You know, I've traveled a lot, and I talk a lot about the Youth Museum here because people think a town the size of Malden wouldn't have anything like this. They're like, oh yeah, I'm sure it's a little room, a garage. But if they ever get the opportunity to come, they're blown away by it.
Well, there was a reason that the four ladies that Patsy spoke of earlier in our original board and all people with the ideas, they called it the Bootheel Youth Museum. They didn't call it the Malden Youth Museum. And we get guests and volunteers and board members from people in many of our communities.
And undoubtedly more so because of that.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys. Anything else that you want to share with folks before we wrap up?
I just want to say that this place is Malden. It's Southeast Missouri, it's the Bootheel. It's not us. It's all of you and everybody out there that made this happen and continue to make it happen. And without all of that support, there's no way we could do it. And, you know, and that people keep coming means everything to us.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that do things with and for the museum that never get seen.
Yeah, sure. Lots of behind the scenes stuff. Well, we appreciate it. Mitch Green, Patsy Reublin, we appreciate you guys spending some time with us today for very interesting. Take an opportunity to come to the Bootheel Youth Museum. We're going to put up their number and website so that you can visit, follow them on Facebook so you know all the events that are going on, and come out, bring your kids, bring your grandkids, and chase them through the maze. We look forward to being back with you again soon on Very Interesting.